Hey everyone, I'm Fabiola Escalon, and you're listening to the Rio Grande Current on Substack. Today, I have the honor and privilege of talking with Justin Early. Justin is a veteran, a dad, a husband, and a cybersecurity specialist. And he's running for Congress in Texas' 31st District. He's challenging longtime Republican Congressman John Carter, who's been in office for decades. He's
Decades.
84 years old, so you can guess. Justin, thanks for taking the time to be here, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Fabiola. I really appreciate you being here, or appreciate being here, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Great. So, Justin, you served as a paratrooper at Fort Bragg. You worked as a land systems administrator at the Pentagon after 9/11,
Mhm.
and you now work at cybersecurity architect at Dell Technologies,
Yeah.
helping you help protect data, infrastructure, and privacy. I want to talk to you today about something a lot of people are anxious about, but don't always have clear information on social media, data collection, government surveillance, and whether people, especially those with pending immigration status, should be worried.
Yes.
So, my question is, from your perspective as a cybersecurity professional, are people right to be concerned about how much personal data social media platforms like Meta and TikTok collect?
Yes, absolutely. They should be concerned. We in the United States have one of the worst cybersecurity laws or privacy laws in the entire world. Russia has better data privacy laws than we do. Um, be that as it may, these platforms actually utilize our data in order to make more money. And so, one of the things I like to tell people is if something is free, then you are the product. And by that, I mean, if you're putting information into something freely, to share, to like, and to have, a social platform, they are then collecting that data and doing something with it. And the number one thing they do with it is utilize that data to sell you something better. Um, Advertisers pay these social media platforms in order to put car ads in front of you or different type of ads in front of you, but the social media platforms want to be able to know exactly how do I target a Nissan towards you, how do I target the next greatest X towards you, right? And the and the end all to this is going to be that these social media platforms will then become the advertisers. It's almost this self-eating snake where they need advertisers' money in order to sell you a product, but they're learning more about you in order to get rid of the advertisers so they can do it themselves. The amount of data that they take today is astronomical. The more you talk, the more you do, the more you engage with that platform, the more it actually helps them build a better profile of who you are to sell you something more. The unfortunate part is when they move away from selling you something to then utilizing that for other means, that's where it gets dangerous. And that's what we're seeing with this new TikTok terms of service.
What kind of data are we actually talking about? Location, facial recognition, device info?
All of the above. Device info is big. Anytime you put an app on your phone, that is the number one thing they get because then they can correlate that data with anybody else's device info. They utilize that to sell you ads. So we all hear the joke of, "Hey, I was just talking about barbecue chips at something," and all of a sudden on your phone it comes up an ad for barbecue chips, right? That's
That's
because you have
happened
your
to me so many times.
That's because that app asks you, can we have microphone access? You said, yeah, I need to talk to it once a day, but you don't realize you're giving access to that anytime it needs that access. If it hears something and then is able to then serve that ad to you, they can then make money off of serving that ad. So the longer they're on, the more they're ingrained to our lives, the more they can sell you. Amazon Alexa services, the microphone for it, they do the same thing. They collect that data in order to then say take that and target you towards what they want you to buy. So
Yikes.
all those data places, all those things data points you're talking about are absolutely being utilized.
I can see my Alexa too. I do have an Alexa. It was actually a gift. I bought another appliance and they gave me this little Alexa that I still use.
Mhm.
Um, there's been a lot of confusion around TikTok, its ownership, US government involvement, and national security claim. So, in plain terms, does the United States involvement make these platforms safer for users or just more accessible to government agencies?
So it's a very complicated answer, and I'm going to say yes and no. Okay. So the data that we put into these systems are now everybody has them, right? Facebook, TikTok, Meta, we all, all those things are out there, and they're all collecting data on us to know how to better serve us something. If that serve you something is an ad or a new car, we're okay with that because we want to make sure we have a car that fits our needs that we need. The problem is though, if that data is then used for something else nefarious, that would be a problem. The yes and no answer comes in where if our government systems and our government were there protecting our data, then yes, having that owned by a U.S. entity that could then be, prosecuted, fined, and all those things that need to be done to actually ensure clean and secure data. As long as it's done in house in the United States, we own all that. We can control that. The
Hmm.
unfortunate part is we have an administration today that is actually using that same platform for nefarious reasons, such as checking people's immigration status, checking people who you talk to, in and around immigration. Um, if you are frustrated with the government, this data will then, if you make a TikTok about it, then that data will then go into another system that could be bought and sold by the U.S. government to then used against you.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty cringy.
It's very cringy. And recently, ICE and Immigration Custom Enforcement, they have been purchasing data from big data brokers, from ads, from YouTube, from TikTok, all these places. Well, TikTok didn't really sell that data. Now today they are able to buy that data, and where that goes, we don't know yet.
Hmm. Um, Many immigrant communities are hearing that ICE uses geolocation, data, facial recognition, and other biometrics to track people who are undocumented or who have cases pending. From what you know, Justin, is that fear grounded in reality? I mean, I think I know the answer, but what is your answer?
Unfortunately, it's not. It is grounded in reality. It is true. There was actually a piece done by some independent journalists recently that actually showed that certain apps that you have on your phone, whether it be Candy Crush, whether it be Reddit, whatever it may be, all those apps then take that data and they can sell it because they want to get more money in. If the right broker buys that data on certain people, then they can actually then track everywhere you are. And some of these apps are constantly pinging and letting people know where you are and who you've been around with. So if you play Candy Crush and I don't play Candy Crush, but we're next to somebody who plays, I don't know, Clash of Clans. I don't play any of these games. Somebody plays that as well. Then we go to a third person who may be undocumented. They can correlate that, hey, we're both friends and we went to the same place. This person may be there. Then they can go track that there. And they're getting to the point where before, in order to get this data, you had to have a warrant. But now what they're doing is just buying bulk data to figure out where people are. And you don't need a warrant to buy that bulk data.
I was afraid of that. I really was afraid of that, and I was starting to connect the dots. I just wanted an expert to tell me about this because I couldn't speak to it.
It,
And
it's
of course,
it's yeah,
so it's very real.
it's very real. It's very concerning. We the genie's already out of the bag. The technology is there. We like to use it. We utilize it every day. It helps connect families. It helps connect friends. It's used in emergency situations to let us know news that's going on in certain areas. These platforms can actually be an absolute force of good. However, because of predatory capitalism and the way that they're taking our data and then selling it to anybody who's willing to buy it, that's when it's going to be used for nefarious reasons. So we need strong laws, strong privacy laws, in order to make sure that we can keep people safeguarded. If you need to find somebody who is undocumented or you need to find somebody who is broken the law, we have methods for that. We get warrants. We have proof to say that they did something, and we don't just blanket sweep people, anybody up to say I need to know everybody who is in a geographical area to find them. That is against my Fourth Amendment rights. It's against your Fourth Amendment rights. But us giving these things to these corporations and then them selling it, that's we're signing those terms of service means we're okay with selling this data, and that's what the
We're
terms of
giving
service mean.
permission.
We're
We're
giving
given
permission.
permission.
Yes.
For people with pending immigration cases, DACA recipients, asylum seekers, or mixed status families, what should they realistically understand about the digital risk?
So there's a few things you can do in understanding. We've talked about the risks that are out there. Anything you have with you with devices and things, they can actually be used to track you for different things. However, you can always confuse the algorithm by
Mm,
not utilizing your real name. You can do things such as turn off as many services that you don't need. You don't need location services. And if you are still pending through statuses, just because you're in one status and you're moving through legally in the system, they're utilizing every method they can in order to break essentially the law to find people. It's a numbers game for them at this point. They want to get 3,000 people a day. So regardless if you're not documented or you are documented, you're going through the process, or you're recently a citizen, they have been sweeping up all of these people regardless of their status. And so these
Right.
technologies are being used in order to find and correlate different people, across the communities. So if you hang in a community where there's been known to be undocumented people, your data may be there. So be careful what
Right.
you share on these platforms.
Okay. So are there common mistakes people make online that unintentionally expose them? So
Yes.
if they're following, the recommendations that you're saying, don't put geolocation, other
Mhm.
things like that, what can they be doing unintentionally that is exposing them?
Yes. So our cell phones, our devices ask permission for things all the time. And we need to recognize what we're asking permission or what they're asking permission for. One of the things that I never ever do, and I always recommend people not to do this, is never upload your contacts to these social media platforms. They say,
Hmm.
hey, we'll connect you with your friends. But the thing is, now that builds an association with multiple people. And if you are associated with certain people, they will then pull you into that just because they're your friend, your cousin, or whatever. You may not realize that now you've made an association with them. The second thing that I always do is not only make sure that you what you're giving permission to, also understand what you're talking to them about. These platforms, whenever you say I'm going to make a TikTok video, I'm going to pull these things up there, in their terms of service, they may say you own that, but then we can utilize that for any purposes we want to, which is what TikTok's new terms of service is. They will then take your data and then say, hey, if it's AI generated, if whatever it means, they will use everything in that video to say, what can we find out more about that person? I'm sitting in my house right now, and this video right here, if it was geolocated, they'd say, hey, he's in Georgetown, Texas. He does these things. And if I said, okay, I'm going to take the same thing and go and log into a TikTok account that's a not a personal account but a business account, they're going to
Hmm.
take the exact same data and say, oh, this is the same person. So be careful of how you collate those things between the two different platforms. If you have a professional persona and a personal persona, sometimes those things they look the exact same to the social media platforms. And the
Right.
final thing I would say, in order to make sure that is make sure you go through your apps and make sure you go through the things that you have, and if you're not utilizing it anymore, delete all the data in there. Um, Unsubscribe for any list that you don't have or don't need, and then delete the app altogether, because that'll actually break down the associations on the inside. If you disconnect from that, if you simply just not stop using it, they keep those associations and they'll sell that data later on. If you break all those associations within the app, then it'll actually confuse the algorithm a little bit and actually give you a separation.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. People are so connected now, and people are using these apps to help each other out. Like we're seeing in Minnesota, they're asking neighbors for food or for daycare or for to take children, to school or pick them up. And so unintentionally, they're being located that way. It sounds like it. They can be, correct?
It can be, and the problem is that certain avenues, like with your if you're making phone calls, in order to get your phone call records, they have to have a warrant that is established and that has to be done. However, if you're utilizing something else that you don't realize that you've given your location data to, or your what you're doing, they can just simply buy that data and then say, okay, who here in this area is associated with these people, and then follow you that way. So while we do have laws to protect you, with the Fourth Amendment and illegal search and seizure, if you give your data to somebody else and then you sell it to them and then they buy it, then you're essentially you're shortcutting the service for them. They don't
Hmm.
have to get a warrant.
Oh my goodness. Um, so, as someone who is running for Congress, what role should lawmakers play here? Do we need stronger data privacy laws, limits
Yes,
on government surveillance?
if I have a neon sign, yes, that's what we would need to do. The problem is that the people who are currently there either believe from lobbyists or big dollar donors that you can't have innovation without having these things. We absolutely can have innovation with privacy. We absolutely can have freedom without the surveillance state. And the thing that they love to tell us all the time is this is for safety, but we're actually seeing today these are the opposite. This is the opposite of safe. So we need
Right.
to make sure we have strong laws and strong prosecution to the people who abuse these laws in order to say, this is not what we want as Americans. This is what we need to do. So as a congressman, I'm running to strengthen data protection. I'm running to strengthen AI and AI regulations. Um, and I'm strengthening and really I want to strengthen our democracy because we need to make sure that we have the ability to vote and make sure we can actually change the country to what it looks like for us versus the few.
So you want data privacy laws, yes, 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 limits on government surveillance, and more
Absolutely.
transparency about how agencies use personal data.
Absolutely.
And AI. AI is just also something else, but I'm not going to talk about AI in this
Yeah,
section. I think that's going to take too long.
right.
How would your cybersecurity background change how you approach this issue compared to career politicians?
Yes. I've utilized this skill for a long time, in cybersecurity and understanding when people utilize data to attack someone else, it's always close enough or not quite right, right? And if we're able to understand how attackers, how businesses utilize this data, then we can actually bring something in the middle to say, hey, we can protect people and their data, but also provide the innovation for what they are or for what they need to do. And so while I understand technology and I love technology, I do not want it to harm our liberties, our freedoms. And so my experience of utilizing, understanding cybersecurity and data privacy laws, I want to be able to provide both. I want to be able to represent the people in my area and the people in the United States of America, but also understand that these systems and these tools, these technologies can be used against us. And so that's the direction we need to go. The final point to this is if you focus your job and your life on other things, you're gonna make sure that you're taking care of that. Or if you're a medical doctor, you want to make sure that healthcare is taken care of, and you're more experienced in that. But we have so many lobbyists and so many dollars around technology. As a technologist, I want to be able to make policy on that. That's gonna be sound for the American people.
That sounds great. We need you in office, Justin.
Thank you. I'm working hard.
So, Justin, before we wrap up, what's the one thing you want families, especially working class and immigrant communities, to understand about cybersecurity and the rights in a digital world? Like, can people learn more about your and also tell us where can people learn more about your campaign?
Sure. Yeah, I think what working class families and communities need to understand and do is, like I said at the beginning, if something is free, then you are the product. So understand the relationship you have with that company. Um, Sometimes we think that if we buy like a $5 item or $3 item, that's what makes that company, a viable business. That is incorrect. The viable business is you utilizing that. They're paying for your eyeballs on there. So understand what your relationship is with these apps and these companies. The second thing I think that people really need to understand is that we need to have strong laws for this area. So challenge your representative, challenge your state lawmakers. They can put in state privacy laws in order to make these companies bend to the will of the people versus the will of the billionaires. And about myself, you can find me. My website is votejustin.early.com. All my social media handles are Vote Justin Early. I know I just talked about social media here this entire time. I had not been on social media for probably 10 plus years until I said, hey, look, somebody needs to make a change. And I had to get out there in the platform in order to let people know. The final point to this is specifically on TikTok. There's been a lot of things happening with the USDS purchase. The new structure they have, to the point where they had some things fall and break and fail. Some people were like, "Oh my goodness, this is it taking over." No, those are standard cybersecurity problems, not privacy problems. But they will soon come. They want you to utilize the platform, so make sure you understand what the relationship you have with those platforms are. Don't just jump to conclusions right away.
Oh my goodness, a lot of hard decisions to make here because we are so dependent and reliant on our apps. We love our apps, even though we do have some understanding that it's invading our privacy, but it's like a necessary evil, double-edged sword, right? Thank you so much for bringing more clarity to this issue that is so important right now.
Thank you.
It's affecting every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything about your opponent, the incumbent?
You
Other
know,
than, because I said that he was 84 years old. That's it.
yeah, it's interesting that I don't really like talking about the incumbent because the issues that we have today, he's been there for so long. If he wanted to fix them, he'd have done it by now. He's not interested in those things. We're talking about what we're going to do for the future.
Thank you so much. Good luck to
Thank
you and
you.
have a great day.
You as well. Have a great day.
Thank you.